Ow! Greetings, YouTube. This is DecKrash, better known as Brandon. Alright, I've just gotten back from watching Man of Steel. And so now I'm going to go ahead and give my thoughts on this. And I'm going to make this as spoiler-free as possible. I will reveal certain aspects of the movie, but I'm not going to lay out the entire plot on wheat bread. I have to admit, when I first had heard about this movie being made, I was happy they were doing another Superman movie, but I was upset that they weren't, making another one uh, after, of course, Superman Returns. The reason being was simply that I liked Superman Returns, and I was really hoping we'd be able to see what happened involving, Superman's son, which you see in that one. Unfortunately, a lot of people didn't like that one. And I'm not going to go into all the whys and hows about why I think Superman Returns was good. This is about Man of Steel. Oh, another thing that kind of bugged me about when I first heard about Man of Steel was the fact that the main villain was going to be General Zod. And the reason being is because every Superman movie has either had, for the known villains out of Superman's rogues gallery, has only had either Lex Luthor or General Zod. Even Superman Returns just had Lex Luthor again as a main villain. And it's like, I'm like, you guys have the Superman has a huge rogues gallery. The Blockbuster Buster Erod from ThatGuyWithTheGlasses.com just did a video based on who he'd choose to play the villains out of Superman's rogues gallery. Superman has a huge rogues gallery. Why is Hollywood constantly going with either Lex Luthor or General Zod? However, I'll get to that point in a moment. That was just a nitpick I had at the very beginning. So I went to go see the movie. Did the 12 the midnight showing, and I went and watched it in 2D rather than 3D. Word-wise, don't go watch this in 3D. It will make you lose your turkey sandwich. It's not made for 3D. Trust me. And so anyway, I loved it. I was thoroughly impressed. Okay, for those of you who love the Richard Donner movies, just like I do, well, at least Superman 1 and 2, but those are the only ones that were really done by Richard Donner, and Superman 2 was only partly done by Richard Donner. The studio took over and booted him off the project. Jerks. But for those of you who love the Richard Donner movies, don't set your expectations to that level. This is apples and oranges. This is a totally unique take on Superman. And I believe it works very well. Alright, to begin, you have this whole story of course, Superman's origins on the planet Krypton, the reasons why Krypton went boom, and of course, even putting in, the whole deal with General Zod. And I'm not telling anyone anything you probably wouldn't know if you look up some things. General Zod tried to stage a coup, and it goes vaguely the way the Richard Donner movies are. They captured him and put him on trial and sent him to the Phantom Zone, and he gets out. Not telling you how it happens, just giving that bare bones plot. Now, after the whole, let me see, that sequence probably took about 20, 25 minutes, I think, maybe less, maybe 15 at the very least. But that whole sequence of what happened on Krypton is then goes to Earth, and it's the storytelling methods change dramatically. Whereas the whole deal with what happened on Krypton was very linear. The story that happens to Earth leading up to the whole him becoming Clark Kent becoming Superman plays out with a lot of flashbacks interspersed, so you understand bit by bit how he grew up in Smallville and his being an outcast or feeling like an outcast, learning about who and what he really is, all are interspersed with the continuing action. And throughout the contiguous action, you weave in Lois Lane, who is helped by Clark, but never knowing who or what he really is. And then, of course, Lois Lane, being a reporter, learns who he is and ends up weaving herself into his life in a very interesting way, especially when General Zod shows up. I thought that this method of storytelling was unique, but a little bit confusing if you don't pay close attention. I'm pretty sure somebody with a very short attention span might get a little confused. Though I like the way it was, so you didn't have to tell it in such a linear fashion. You wouldn't have to tell the whole story of Krypton and then Clark's growing up in Smallville and then becoming Superman. Oh, and keep this in mind: this movie is the becoming of Superman. It's like Batman Begins. How that story was the becoming of Batman, and you didn't see Bruce Wayne come into his own as Batman until right at the end of the second act, going into the third one. So, and it's the same way with this one. You get a brief glimpse of him being Superman with the costume and trying to fly, but you really don't see him jump into action until right as the third act begins. The plot has that sort of slow burn up to that point. So I I'll say this in a moment. I'll just say is that I think some people might not like that. I personally didn't mind it. I understood they were trying to make sure that they put all the elements in place to show what kind of a person Clark was, his family values growing up. And by the way, Kevin Costner did a wonderful job as as Mr. Kent, as Superman's Earth Father. Oh, and of course Russell Crowe too, playing Jor-El. He really was cool. He had that regal presence that even when you read about Jor-El in the comics, he comes off of that regal presence. Russell Crowe, I think, nailed it. So, anyway, as I was saying, is that you had that slow burn plot, but then when the action hits, it hits you and never lets go. I will say this. Every person gave a killer performance, and I have to admit, what was his name? Michael Shannon, playing General Zod. He played it to the hilt. This guy was a megalomaniacal zealot. He was a true believer in what he did. And actually, they explain why he's that way. When Clark begins to learn about who he is and where he comes from, they actually do an explanation as to why General Zod is this way, rather than like. And yes, I am going to make a comparison with Richard Donner movies, rather than him just being a twirling your mustache evil person, as the Richard Donner movies presented him. And sorry, folks, there was no kneel before Zod moment. I'm sorry, I had to release that away, but he still has a remarkable stage presence. And just the you remember how in oh god, I guess I can't help but do some comparison, but really this is more of a technical comparison, rather than just a comparison to the movie in general. In the Richard Donner movies, of course, the visual effects they had to use practical effects to show off that Superman was super strong and could fly and everything like that. And then, of course, if you know Superman 2, he was General Zod's another Kryptonian, so on Earth he was super strong and had all of Superman's powers. So Superman fighting against, of course, not one but three Kryptonians that were his equal. Well, in this one, he not only had to contend with General Zod, but his army, that his like inner circle, which are they don't really give a clear number as to how many Kryptonians there are, but it's a lot. And think of this: Superman fighting against all these beings that have his powers. And then you mix in today's visual effects, which makes for an awesome amount of action. The battle scenes and action scenes featuring Superman and General Zod and his army are a sight to behold. They are incredible. Now they use a lot of that shaky cam bit that many people, once again, will not like. And as I said, and I think I said this earlier, and if I haven't, I'll say it again. Don't go see this in 3D. You will toss your cookies, because that shaky cam I just could not imagine sitting there with my 3D glasses. And I actually entertained the thought of going to see it in 3D, but I went with a friend of mine who wears glasses and is very is very nearsighted, so he can't use those 3D glasses. He wouldn't be able to see a single thing. So, but I'm glad I didn't. After seeing just how much of the shaky cam they use in that movie, the 3D glasses would have really not been worth it. So, just giving you a warning: save your money. Go watch it regular 2D. You're missing out on nothing. So, as I was saying, General Zod, great performance. Actually, everybody roundabout gave a wonderful performance. Henry Cavill as Superman. You see the human side of him, growing up and being an adult and looking back on his life, growing up with his mother and his adopted mother and father, and having to deal with trying to stay off the radar because his father knew that the world wasn't ready for him. And of course, the kids that played him growing up did a great job as well. You never felt like this was some kid whose acting was out of place. Everything wove in perfectly. Amy Adams as Lois Lane. She was Lois Lane. You see, Kate Bosworth played Lois Lane in Superman Returns. Now, as I said before, I liked Superman Returns, but Kate Bosworth was the only problem I had with it because she was no Margot Kidder. Okay, Amy Adams was Lois Lane. The only problem I had with it is that why didn't she dye her hair black? Because Lois Lane has black hair, and that kind of bugged me. But I guess they just wanted to kind of break the chains of convention, and yeah, I'm cool with that. It's not a that's just a tiny nitpick. But Lois is an ace reporter, loves to get into the action, has that knack for getting into trouble, and it was all there. And it came off so naturally. It didn't make you feel like she was just somebody who was always, in the wrong place at the wrong time. No, in this case, happenstance put her in the right place at the right time almost all the time. She she really is an amazing character with a lot of depth and a lot of heart. And she and Superman immediately form a close bond that their progression of there is a hint of that romantic thing. Not going to tell you where or when, but it progresses more naturally than it seemed to have done in the old Richard Donner movies. Once again, I'm not putting down the Richard Donner movies. I loved them. But Richard Donner movies, like I said, apples and oranges. That style was more campy. This one was a much more serious and, well, dare I say, darker take on the whole deal. Now, trying to scroll down here. Let me see. Oh, the only problem I had with General Zod, by the way, I had to go back to him, is he sort of spoke with this really weird lisp, as if he was trying to sound like, um, what's his face? Oh my God, I can't remember. Sean Connery, but without the charming Scottish accent, which I cannot mimic to save my life. Anyway, Kevin Costner, as I said before, great performance as Jonathan Kent, and Diane Lane as Martha Kent. Even though she didn't get a whole lot of screen time, she did have a very good presence as Clark's mother. There's this one scene in a flashback where Clark his powers are developing, and it causes him to a lot of pain. But they have the scene where she comes in and is really helping him out of it. It's a really beautiful scene. She comes off really well, has a great presence in that motherly way. And despite the fact that she didn't get a lot of screen time, I thought she did a wonderful job. Props go to Lawrence Fishburne. Even though he didn't get a whole lot of screen time as Perry White, I think he did a wonderful job as what he was given. And I'm pretty sure that in the sequel, and yes, they are making a sequel, that I'm hoping they'll give him a bit of a bigger role. Because I mean, it's Lawrence Fishburne, but he's done great roles. I mean, it's Morpheus, for the love of God. Let me see if I'm missing anyone. As I said before, Russell Crowe, great regal presence. Um, those are the core cast members. So as I said, wonderful performances all around. Even the ones that didn't get a lot of screen time, though I didn't. Either I just missed it, or I missed them saying it, but I didn't see Jimmy Olsen. If you did, they said it, you know, and you watched the movie, hey, feel free to correct me and let me know where down in the comment section. But that's the only thing I just felt kind of lacking there. So, as I said, great cast performances. And as I said before, visual effects are astounding. This really shows Superman's powers in the way you always imagine them. How fast he moves, how he's able to fly, his heat vision and seeing things as X-ray vision, be able to hear things that and that invulnerability. It's amazing. He didn't need that slow down and watching a bullet break on his eye like they did in Superman Returns. Though I thought that scene was pretty cool. This one, he just showed this guy was. They really, it was the Man of Steel. You could fire everything you wanted at him. It wouldn't do jack. Maybe knock him back, but he'd get up without a scratch. The same thing as I said. I mean, Superman is there fighting against an army of Kryptonians, and like I said, these action scenes just are incredible. I mean, you see just tons. I mean, if you imagine beings that are like gods that can't be hurt and it can fly at any speed, pounding the living crap out of each other, and think about how much collateral damage that would make. Now see it on the screen. Yes, you get that. So amazing right there. All right. That was what I. That was the money. I mean, I wish I could describe it to you further, but it's just not going to do it justice. Let me see. Negative points about the movie. There was one thing that stuck out. And really, and this is going to require a little bit of spoiling, so if you don't want any spoilers at all, you might want to stop right now. Okay, if you're watching, you're going to get a little spoiler. The Kryptonians made they used to colonize planets using some sort of a terraforming machine, and General Zod wants to terraform Earth into another Krypton. Why Earth? They never explain. They explain they use these machines to terraform other worlds. And they never understood why. They never explained why General Zod wanted to do this to Earth. Except for the fact that he viewed humans as an inferior life form. But I mean, the only thing I can think of as a reason for why he had to use Earth as a template was maybe they needed a certain type of planet. And I think it would have benefited the movie a little to have explained that better. That's the only issue I had with the movie. It is a bit of a plot hole. But in the face of such a good amount of storytelling, great visual effects and acting, I think I mean I think that's easily overlooked. Now back to what I was trying to say. As I said, great storytelling, great acting, visual effects, and amazing. I mean, I loved the way they made Krypton look. I mean, this is something completely different from anything you've seen in any of the TV series or cartoons or the movies. You don't have that crystalline, minimalist, stark Krypton like Richard Donner made, and you don't have the more um, almost look almost look 1970s-ish architecture that you'd seen in some of the old cartoons, especially the one from the 1990s series that came on the WB. This is something completely different, and I loved every bit of it. I eat that kind of stuff. A big sci-fi nerd, loved the whole description of alien world, so I was really looking forward to seeing what Krypton was going to look like. So there you have it. On the whole, I give this movie solid 9 out of 10. Aside from that one little plot hole, there's really nothing bad I can say about it. This movie was a becoming of Superman. This was this was Clark Kent coming into his own, having to deal with the public coming to know who he is. Oh, and one little thing. Rather than the whole campy and everybody loves me type thing that the other movies have done, this one takes a darker aspect, at least showing how we really would react to an alien being among us. And not only that, an alien being with the powers Superman has, we will be at first terrified of him. And they ask a very poignant question at the end. It's like, how do you know? This general asks, how do you know you're on our side? And it's how do you know? Are what if you turn cold? How do we know you're not going to be fighting for our interests? And Superman told him, I was born in Kansas. I'm as American as it gets. So yeah, it's a lot of trust involved in that particular setting, and this is him becoming, despite all that happens. I highly recommend it. Like I said, 9 out of 10. Great movie, great story, great acting, great visual effects. This is the Superman we've been waiting for. And I think it'd be very, very. I think that most people are going to really like it. And unfortunately, I've been looking at various critics. Now I've seen some fairly positive reviews, but other reviews that are negative. I just don't understand what people are wanting. Are they just trying to compare it? Do they just want another Richard Donner um, experience? Are they looking to? Are they just trying? They just can't help comparing it to that. And to that, I tell people, if you're gonna go watch this, as I said before, don't compare it to the originals. Go in it expecting, take away your expectations and go enjoy it for what it is. A lot of people, I think, a lot of the negative reviews come from people just being way too quick to judge it, in comparison to the Richard Donner movies. They're iconic, yes, but Zack Snyder was not trying to do this. So I say go watch it and decide for yourself. I personally loved it. But then again, I'm a very easy to please guy when it comes to movies. There's very few movies that I absolutely hated. So I think that's all I have to say about that. Great movie. Go check it out, everybody. And any comments, questions, just talk them down there below in the comment section. As always, keep it civil. And so that's it for me. Until next time, everyone, this is DecKrash, better known as Brandon. As always, stay lucky and stay blessed. Take care.